Welcome to Module 5. In this module, we're going to be talking about how to create obvious value within your business, your service, whatever it is that you're trying to push out there along this distribution network that we're talking about. Frankly, when I say that, people get sometimes a bit confused. Obvious value? Well, of course it's obvious if it's valuable. What I'm actually talking about is the thing that drives people to buy it immediately. Any business that you create, and I'm sure that when you've come up with your own business ideas, or if you're selling a business or a product already, you already see the value in it because you've built it, or you've constructed it, or you've learned it internally. You understand its value. So you think, yeah, well, I can see where the value sits. I need to now just represent this and be the ambassador to it and show the world this information. But the fact is, if it's not obvious value, it's like hard for people to immediately grasp. Okay. So exploiting obvious value is knowing a few things, but with a bit of a twist. And I'm going to explain those here. So let's call this knowing the following things. I'm going to split this up now into 3 sections. Let's change the color here as well. Okay. So over here, the first thing that you want to know is, of course, it's about, understanding obvious value, or value as in its entirety, is whether or not you know your market. Okay. So the first one is, do you know your market? Second, of course, is, do you know your customer? They're not the same thing, okay? You might understand that there is a need for vacuum cleaners. There's your market. But who is a customer for your vacuum cleaner? Is it the industrial vacuum cleaner? Is it you see where I'm going with this? You've got to know who your customer is within that market. The second thing you want to know, and this is really what I'm going to be focusing on throughout the next couple of sections. Truly, this is really the important one. And that is whether or not people are buying it because they see functional value in it. Functional value, or whether they see emotional value. Now, what we're going to try and do here is to figure out whether or not we need to either create functional or emotional value, or identify functional or emotional value. So we're going to write this. So let me explain what this means. You understand your market, you understand your customer. You're deciding on whether or not people are buying your business, if it's for functional reasons or emotional reasons, and you're choosing now whether or not you need to either create an emotional reason to a functional product, or identify a functional reason with an emotional product. So what I mean by this is, if you look at some companies out there like Apple, for instance, if we use a generic, in fact, let's not use Apple. Let's use Dyson, the vacuum cleaner company. What made Dyson sell so well? Why is Dyson the Apple of the vacuum cleaner world, right? Because they had a very functional product, but they were competing in a certain space, and they had to figure out how to create some obvious value that people could just immediately be drawn to. Now, they already knew that it was a good vacuum cleaner. I mean, these price tags were around $400 or so. They had to create an emotional. So they had to either identify something that was an emotional value add, or where they had to create that emotional value add. Equally, if you have an emotional driven product, perhaps it's kind of like a music, it's an application of some sort that's driving emotion for people to buy into it. You've got to think now, if you're working in a space where there's a lot of competition, can you focus on the functional elements of it to access those buyers that you really want? And I'll give you an example with my parking lot. My parking lot, as a parking business, a private equity option buying parking lots, I mean, there's nothing emotional about that. And parking in and of itself, yeah, it is functional, but do you see the functional value? I need to identify, or I've got to create it. So with my parking lot, identifying the value in parking is, it's parking lots and they're in good locations, so they make money. Okay, well, so are storage companies, and so are hotels and motels. Still nothing to really capture someone's attention. So I had to create a driven functional reason why people were going to buy my parking lot. So I had to focus on those things. I focused on the fact that the land, there's the key points behind my parking business, the fact that it's land and it goes up in value, appreciates over time, the fact that it's price elastic. I can change the prices on it every single day whenever I want. The price of milk goes up tomorrow. I can increase the parking prices. It's cash flows all the time. And of course, there's very low carry costs. And on top of that, as an investor, you don't have to buy the whole parking lot. You can buy the small little parking space, which is part of this big parking lot, and you're benefiting from all the money that this thing's making. So it's basically paying you an income. So it's a smart decision if you've got 20 to 30 grand just sitting around burning a hole in your pocket. So I had to create that functional rationale behind it to really push that out there. So that's a quick example about what the kind of the lens we're going to be looking through this module for, which is all about value, and how we can make it really obvious. So I'll see you in the next section.